book of Esther this morning. The book of Esther. Now, there are two books in the Bible named after women. The book of Ruth and the book of Esther. And if you were to do a study of women in the Bible, you would find that most of them were strong women. Very, very interesting. And Esther was a very strong woman. Esther chapter 4, by way of a reading, and beginning at verse 9. Hathach went back and reported to Esther what Mordecai had said. Then she instructed him to say to Mordecai, all the king's officials and the people of the royal provinces know that for any man or woman who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned, the king has but one law, that he be put to death. The only exception to this is for the king to extend the gold scepter to him and spare his life. But it's been 30 days since I was called to go to the king. When Esther's words were reported to Mordecai, he sent back this answer. Do not think that because you're in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to this royal position for such a time as this. Then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai, go gather together all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my maids will fast as you do. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went away and carried out all of Esther's instructions. So at this time the Jews were under the regime of the kingdom of Persia, which went from the top of Egypt in a big arc, actually, right across to India. It was a huge area of a kingdom. And the king of Persia was having this great banquet for all of the nobles of his kingdom. It went for days. And there was a lot of liquid diet as well during this banquet. And when things were well lubricated, the king decided he wanted to show off his queen. I'm sure he would have done this many, many times before, because he wanted his nobles, his officials, to see what an outstanding woman she was. And so he got the message through to the queen that she would come in and she would present herself to these nobles, and they would have had many, many comments to make. Their eyes would have been upon her, and she decided that she no longer wanted to do this. She no longer wanted to parade herself as some kind of object, maybe even a sex object, to all of these people. She had had enough. And she said to the king, I'm not going to do it. once too many. The king was so offended that he banished her. And so he asked the nobles of his kingdom, his public servants, the bureaucrats of the kingdom of Persia, to go and look for another queen throughout the kingdom. There would have been many, many people that would have been thought of as prospects to be the queen. But they chose one person, and that was Esther. And Esther was a Jew. It's an amazing story. The fact that Esther was chosen, the fact that she was a Jew, and out of all of the possibilities that could have been there, it's just an incredible story of God's sovereign will. As Christian believers, we would call it circumstantial providence, which is to say that there are circumstances in our lives which bring things together. It might be a relationship, it might be a calling, it might be some particular service that the Lord places upon us. But things come together and we say to ourselves, God was in that. It wasn't something that we planned. It wasn't something that we were organising. Just like Esther, it was a God thing. So Esther was presented to the king, and he was very pleased with her. And she became the queen of Persia. Now, Esther happened to be an adopted daughter to a senior Jewish person, and his name was Mordecai. So you could say that Mordecai, who was very senior in the Jewish community, had a kind of an inside contact with the palace, because Mordecai was often in the public forum, as it says in the story, sitting at the king's gate. So that there would have been many people who would have wanted to ask questions of him, and that's why he was there. And so Mordecai had a kind of information about what was going on. And he knew that there was a bureaucrat in the kingdom of Persia who hated the Jews. His name was Haman. And Haman was particularly outraged that when he went out into that public area and Mordecai was there sitting at the gate, he was outraged that Mordecai paid him no respect. Didn't stand up, didn't bow down to him, didn't pay him any homage at all. Haman was so furious that he wasn't given any respect from this Jewish man. Now, just to give you a little bit of an insight, Haman, as you will find in the story, was an Agagite, which goes right back to the time of the Amorites, who were always enemies of the Jewish people. And he comes from that long line of hostility. Very interesting, isn't it, how a kind of an attitude can run right through a family, right through a whole generation. And you get to this point where Haman is many, many years away from his forefathers, and yet he still hates the Jews. And so he decided to put out a document, a statement, an edict, that all the Jews in the kingdom of Persia were to be slaughtered. It's quite amazing when you think about this bureaucratic decision, because the king needs to be reminded of this edict that's put out. We would call it the Canberra bubble, where things go on and sometimes our politicians don't even know about it. And that's really what was happening here. He put out this document, a date was set, and all of the Jewish people in the kingdom were to be slaughtered. And that's why you'll find Mordecai bringing a message to Esther. And he reminds her that she's Jewish, and he lets her know about this edict that's gone out in the kingdom, and that so many people are going to lose their lives. And he wants her to step in and do something on behalf of her people, but particularly to do something on behalf of the Lord, his people. And that's why you'll find in that verse, it's verse 14, just the second half of verse 14, Mordecai says to Esther, "Who knows, but that you have come to this royal position for such a time as this." What an extraordinary verse that is. What a wonderful verse it is. Esther, you have been put in this place for a reason. Esther, this is what it's all about for you. This is a moment that God has chosen for you to do something on behalf of your people and on behalf of your Lord. Doesn't that speak to your heart too? That you're here for a reason. You're here for a purpose. You are not here to make up the numbers. You are here because the Lord has a reason for you to do something for him and for his glory. And it's all coming together. It's all going to be made clearer to you that you're going to make this commitment. It's a wonderful, wonderful verse. Now, Esther reminded Mordecai that there was a certain culture in the kingdom, in the palace, and that is for her to go and meet the king was a very, very dangerous thing, because the king always demanded that a person be invited to come into his presence. And if they were not invited and they came to the court, if the king happened to be in a particular mood, he could have them executed right on the spot. And Esther said to Mordecai, if I'm going to do this, he may execute me, because I haven't seen him for 30 days. The mind boggles a little bit, doesn't it? She's the queen, and yet she is under this system in which he could be executed. And that's why she prays about it. That's why she asks others to join with her in this preparation, in this prayer, because she made the decision that whatever cost it may be, whatever sacrifice may be involved in this commitment, this standing before the king, whatever it may mean, she knew she had to do it. And that is why you'll find in that verse, right at the end of verse 16, she said, if I perish, I perish. Now that is commitment. And there's going to be occasions for you and for me in the coming days when we're going to have to make decisions that may cost something. There may be some sacrifices involved. It may be that you will declare yourself at some risk to your promotion perhaps, some risk to the sort of commitment that you may have to make about your family, some sort of declaration in the future which you're going to be called upon to say, I am a Christian. I'm not going to put up with that. I can't do that. I'm not going to compromise with that. I have certain values, and I have certain beliefs, and I have my Lord, and I cannot say that, and I cannot do that, and I will not do that. And if it costs me, then so be it. That's the sort of reality of the way we follow Jesus. If I perish, I perish. And Esther did make that decision, and it did turn out really well. The tables were turned, and a wonderful blessing came to the Jewish people in the kingdom of Persia. It's a great story, and look, you could read it through in one sitting, the whole book of Esther, and it's a tremendous story in the Bible. One of the great stories of the Old Testament. And it reminds me also of Joseph of Arimathea. Remember him? He's mentioned in the 4 Gospels. Only just 3 or 4 verses usually, but in each of the Gospels he's referred to as a secret disciple. He was a member of the Sanhedrin, the most powerful Jewish committee in Jerusalem in the time of Jesus. 71 powerful people, and he was a member of that committee. And it was a committee that made rules and regulations about the Jewish people in Jerusalem. And at some point during that service, he became a follower of Jesus. But he was a secret follower of Jesus. Now, he has his own reasons for that. No doubt some of it was to do with, I can best serve God in this committee because this will give me the chance to maybe prevent some problems, maybe foresee things that were coming. And in all of those sorts of ways, that would have been part of his reasoning for being a secret disciple as well as remaining on the committee. And that's what he did. But then the crucifixion. Jesus is crucified. He hears Jesus say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Must have had a tremendous impact on him. He hears Jesus say to John, look after Mary. And he did, incidentally. And he would have heard Jesus say, because the thief on the cross said, will you remember me when you come into your kingdom? And Jesus said, this day you will be with me in paradise. It would have struck him very, very deeply because this man was dying due to the way he had broken the law in in those times, he well and truly deserved it. And he's saying to Jesus, would you remember me when you come into your kingdom, into paradise? And Jesus said yes. It must have struck Joseph of Arimathea very deeply. But then he would have been thinking some more. Now what happens when death takes place? They could just take the body and throw it in the garbage, because that's what it was. Just a garbage dump for the vultures just to eat the flesh. And he's saying to himself, I don't want that to happen. That would be too much for the body of my Lord to be just thrown there in the dump. And so he owned a tomb in a garden. I've been to that tomb. I've been inside that tomb. I've been in the garden tomb. And I've been there, and it's a family tomb where it could have taken a number of bodies. And Joseph of Arimathea asked for permission to take the body of Jesus and to place it in that tomb. And he and Nicodemus took the body down, the body of our Lord, and placed it in the garden tomb. And as soon as he had done that, everybody would have known what he was about. Everybody would have known that he was a follower of Jesus. They would have all realised that he had been a secret disciple for so long, but now he had revealed himself what he was truly like. He really was a follower of Jesus. And the difference that it made to Joseph of Arimathea was the cross. The cross. And this is what has impacted all of our lives, isn't it? This is what has impacted Christians now for over 2,000 years, as we've considered the cross, as we've considered that sacrifice, and as we've considered that tremendous love and faithfulness to that sacrifice. Isn't it true? We sing that song, fill my eyes, O my God, with a vision of the cross. Fill my heart with love for Jesus. It's the cross that makes the difference. If you're lacking any sort of motivation, look at the cross. If you're sensing any kind of discouragement or depression, look at the cross. If you're hesitating in any way at all about your commitment, look at the cross. If you're right on the verge of making a decision about Jesus,